Hello, everyone. I'm Elle Fanning, and I play Catherine on the Hulu's original series, The Great. Thank you so much for watching so far. Woo! And today I'm joined with all my fellow castmates, incredible people. I'm like so happy to see everyone's face. We're all in very different parts of the world, but we're together to answer your questions. So we're going to do a Q&A. We know that you have some questions about the season and maybe the filming of it. So I guess to start off, maybe like we can all say who we are and who we play in this world.
I'll kick us off. I'm Sacha Dhawan, and hi from London, and I play Count Orlo.
My name is Sebastian D'Souza, and I'm in London too, and I play Leo.
I'm Gwilym Lee. This is exciting, isn't it?
Isn't it? Who's going to go next?
Oh, it's great. Also living in London and speaking from there. And I play Griggle.
Linda Brumelo, and I play Aunt Elizabeth, crazy Aunt Elizabeth, and I'm in Australia.
I'm Douglas Hodge, and I play General Velamentov, and I'm in New York.
I'm Nick Holt. I play Peter, and I'm in Los Angeles.
I'm Charity Wakefield. I play Georgina Dimov. I'm in London.
Hi, I'm Phoebe Fox, and I play Mariel, and I'm also in London.
And I'm Adam Godley, and I play Archie, the Archbishop, and I'm in New York, but also here with my posse.
Should I start off the first question?
Yeah, let's see.
We have a tweet from Maggie May Fish. She wants to ask the cast, how did you prep for a character that was a real life figure? And how much do you feel beholden to accuracy?
Very, very beholden.
Yeah. It feels like they were the most accurate, perhaps. Can start.
Who was accurate?
Yeah, who is
Yeah, I mean, mine wasn't based on a real person, so I'm going to bow out.
I do remember, Phoebe, you and I turned up for like the prep and rehearsals when we were doing before the pilot, and we took our history books out, being good, diligent students, trying to impress Tony McNamara, and he very quickly was just like, "Yeah, don't worry about that."
Like even with Phoebe, you were trying to think of, like, well, would a maid do this? Would she sit down? Would she stand up? And Tony's like, we do not care about that. Like, the rankings.
The teacher's pet in me was like, what? But where's the homework? Are we doing an essay? What?
So I guess in a sense, like all the characters are loosely based on, inspired by, and kind of amalgamations of various figures in history, but none of them are strictly accurate. So I think we were able to take inspiration from all sorts of places and take a bit from here and a bit from there and create our own characters and our own world inspired by the Russia of that time.
Some of the stuff in it is real, isn't it? Like the vaccine stuff with the smallpox.
Tony actually probably knows more about Catherine the Great than a lot of people in the world. Like, I don't think he's done so much research on her and pulled the facts that I think he feels that would be useful, and also, fun facts of like useful to the tone. I think we just wanted to create our version of her, but also like one little thing, the real Catherine the Great invented the roller coaster. And I'm like, okay, like that's all I need to know. She sounds like a fun person, like fantastic.
That's season 2.
Yeah.
Oh, did Catherine the Great really fuck that horse though? That's what we want to know.
Stop asking me.
It's probably the other way around, but
There were some modern touches with the music and dialogue. What inspired these choices?
I couldn't believe how modern it all was. The story really, and how it relates to today. So it feels like right to me that there's all sorts of music and clothes and things that are, not of the period. Because it's a great way to talk about today, it seems to me. It's the most modern period thing I've seen for a long time.
In that way, it's similar to The Favourite, which is, I was so excited to audition for something written by Tony, and The Favourite was so amazing. And part of the reason I loved it so much was the fact that it felt like it was telling a story about relationships that I kind of wanted to know more about and recognised, that felt like relatable now. Polly Bennett was amazing, wasn't she, at creating all of those dances that felt like based in a kind of idea of like
Yeah, yeah.
18th century dance, but had all these kind of modern touches, and it was so cool. I remember the first time watching Elle and Nick doing that incredible duet kind of dance together. It felt like really exciting.
You guys even had like tracksuits, 18th century tracksuit.
Running tracksuits.
I love that. Yeah.
Nick, it's not too dissimilar to what you're wearing now, actually.
I still haven't dropped. I haven't dropped character. I'm really praying for a second series. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do.
But I guess that there's also the fact that we have no idea what people sounded like at that time. We've no recordings of people in the 1700s of what they spoke like and how they spoke to each other. So it's all kind of imagination, and so all bets are off and everything's up for grabs, I think.
It's quite liberating not being tied down to any kind of like the idea of manners and like the way people might have spoken at the time. It's kind of quite freeing in a way. When you just imagine them as human beings and how they might express themselves as we do,
I remember during the pilot, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And I remember there was the wedding scene, the big banquet. And I remember the first AD saying to everybody, because everyone were worried about being prim and proper, eating with their knives and forks. And I remember when the first AD was like, no, eat how you want to eat, and it kind of turned the narrative slightly. And that's when I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I felt like it hadn't really been done before on television.
And I guess also because this court that Catherine comes into is a very weird, isolated society that's grown. It's got its own kind of cult. So we had to kind of create that. Yeah. It is liberating.
Personal music highlight for the season was probably Emperor Peter's violin kind of virtual.
Oh yeah.
How's the violin going, Nick? How's it going?
The sad thing was about the violin that I really tried. I had 10 hours of lessons. And they kept on saying, don't worry, it's meant to be bad. And I was like, yeah, but to sound bad, like I've got to even be able to make a noise on the thing. And it's very difficult, the violin. So I was struggling. It was very embarrassing. I sweat a lot.
I think you pulled it off brilliantly.
I'm very aware that you had 10 hours of lessons because you had them in the dressing room next to mine. So yeah, thanks. It's still the soundtrack to my madness. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right, I've got an Instagram question for Elle.
Oh gosh. Okay.
What is it that you most admire about Catherine the Great?
I might say her curiosity is what I think I admire the most. I also love her ego and arrogance. I really liked playing that. I mean, especially when Catherine is starting out, she's extremely optimistic and almost, naive, and has this kind of romantic view of this marriage, and obviously reality kind of quickly slaps her in the face and she is knocked back a bit. So what I admire most about the character we created, at least, is that I feel like she's human. I mean, I'm kind of allergic to the term like strong female character because I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't want to watch a person that's just always has the answer, is always the bravest person in the room, is always the most courageous. Like, that is just not interesting to me. So I think her making the mistakes that she makes, and she kind of goes 5 steps forward and then 3 steps back, and like that inner turmoil that she's feeling, and her perseverance, I guess, that the passion lives on and she is able to carry on, is what I admire the most in her. She's so interesting to play because she's like kind of a dichotomy of a person. Like, everything's opposite. Like, she's contradicting herself a lot of the time. So, but it was fun to play in that regard.
You know what was really nice, Elle, is watching the season in its entirety and just seeing how much Catherine the Great had grown as a person from episode 1 to episode 10. And obviously I've done scenes with you guys. You're so in it, but then just seeing the whole journey of it, I was like, wow, if you compared to how she was at the beginning, it was really brilliant. And even I was like, I want to see more. I want to see what happens to it.
And I think that's what's so cool about TV too, is like, I had an experience doing a series like that. Like, wow, I had 10 hours to explore a character. And like, I think for all of us, we felt like all of our characters, we got to change, but we had the time to explore that. It wasn't like, oh, just 2 hours of a film where, they're this way in a scene, then they're another way. It's like we had so much time to figure that out. So I love
and they definitely, all the characters go on an incredible journey if you think where it starts out and where it ends, and everybody got to explore that. But I think, Elle, picking up on what you said, that you think of Catherine the Great's courage at that time to take on the world as it was at that time. This extraordinary sort of patriarchy that she lived in, that just dominated everything. And she came along and just, in the most subtle and intelligent and extraordinary way, began to dismantle it. And it's amazing to watch you portray that, and to watch Catherine's journey and the way she figures that out, with a little help from her friends.
Exactly. I have a question for Nick. It's a tweet for you. How many glasses did you break on set?
I must have broken about, 10, 15 in the first episode. I think the highlight of breaking glasses was that scene we did in the breakfast room where you make like the Bloody Mary, where you have the idea of giving me the Bloody Mary to cure the hangover. The first AD on that day bet me £100 if I could throw the glass like on a target. So I took the bet, and the first take I managed to hit it, and I got £100.
I've got a question for Dougie. This comes from a tweet from Stuart Brazel. Oh, referring to you as the General. You play drunk very well. What are your acting tips to recreate this character at home?
What? Years and years of research, really. Just years and years of practice.
Such a diligent actor.
It's not the first time I've been asked that question, actually. I think I have to probably play drunk in lots of things. I don't know quite why they choose me for that. The way to act drunk is to be, funnily enough, as specific as you possibly can. So when you're drunk, instead of sort of being blurry, you are very, very specific about it. The way you walk and talk is very clear. And I think that's probably the only way to do it.
Like Elemental in the room.
Yeah, apart from drinking as much as you possibly can.
I think one of my favorite lines, Dougie, is when you're drunk and you're like, well, I pissed myself. It's just so, my husband and I have taken it as just like something we say to each other around the house often.
We should all have T-shirts with that printed on it.
I've pissed myself. Yeah.
Look, you were really difficult to do scenes with, because I'll be standing next to you and you'd have this kind of getting into Elemental, and
and the belching and the belching,
constant sound effects. That is just. It was also like the detail that I really loved was like the swallowed vomit almost. And then you swallowed it back. That was a nice touch.
Yeah.
That's actually a good one, because it leads on to a tweet from someone called Gwilim Lee. Is that you, Gwilly? Did you tweet yourself? It says, who is the person most likely to make others laugh during a take?
Well, there's Doug's constant, Doug's constant belching, farting, grumbling, heavy breathing.
That was just in the dressing room.
Willem, do you remember the scene where we finally got to laugh
at
Doug in a scene? That was one of my favorite days.
And it was like, it was very sweet. It's like a scene where Doug reveals, or Elemental reveals to us, that he wants to be Catherine's lover, or suggest himself as Catherine's lover. And
what's funny about that?
Nothing, really, nothing. But we obviously then kind of break down in fits of laughter. And then at the end, Doug very sweetly came up to me and was like, God, it's so difficult actually having to like keep up that level of energy and laughter throughout a whole scene. I was like, Doug, really, look at you. It's not difficult. It's really not difficult to laugh at you all day long.
For me, it was Belinda. And I really recall, it's the scene where we think that the Emperor Peter's going to die. I shouldn't laugh. And we're all huddled in the corridor. And there was a bit where you were looking inside and you turned around, you had to say a line. And I just remember saying, I actually just can't look at you. I'm going to look to the side of your face. There's something about you just got funny bones. And also your character's lines were always so completely mad, or you'd be blowing bubbles or saying something incredibly outrageous with just a really gentle smile.
I mean, that's so often, it's so often in the writing, like, and you've got to deliver it often deadpan. Like Nick, you had some outrageous lines. Like when you had
Yes, I was going to say for Nick, some of your lines just
you had to come into a room at one point
easy.
and say, "Oh, the last time I was in here was when my uncle shoved a carrot up my arse or something." And you've got to keep a straight face while you're listening to him say these things.
Tweet from Shalaya Evans: Was there ever any room for improvising in scenes?
No.
Charity, do you remember
Only
we kind of
Charity.
got given, like, we were kind of allowed once, but then had that taken away from us?
I think Tony's writing is so specific that it is kind of hard to find anything better a lot of the time. But I've never worked with a kind of more severe script supervisor. Even if you just sort of said instead of the, she'd come over and say, nope, it's or it's the.
Which segues into a question: what's your favorite line when Peter's dying and he's sort of overcome with regret about how he didn't get to change July to his own name?
Yeah.
I've got regrets, things I want to do. I wanted to name July, rename it Peter, or something like that. Yeah. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, I remember the line.
I like that line a lot.
There's some really good ones, like there's ones that just very simple, like when you're looking out the window at the soldiers and you just shout "fuck them up" as they're walking off to war. I mean, that's a good one.
Or Peter the me.
There's a great line from Peter, which is, I asked for a hint of rosemary, not a ball bag of it.
I was going to say that speech that Elle makes, that Catherine makes, when we've just, when everyone's been tortured. That's a fantastic piece of writing. I was thinking the other night watching it. Fantastic. When she
that big speech to the whole room.
Yeah. You suddenly
it is
a true leader. Yeah. Sorry, Phoebe.
No, I was going to say mine's so weird, I think, but it was from the pilot where Nick, where you say talk to Bettina for funds. Just the idea that there was a woman called Bettina that you could get funds from, that she was in some sort of office. I don't know, man.
I think Bettina is a pretty common Russian name. Yeah.
She sounds like she's from Guildford. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I have a question from Gwilym Lee, who's definitely not me, guys. Definitely.
Do it in a Dutch accent.
Okay, from Gwilym Lee, the Dutch Gwilym. Is there a song that reminds you of your character? Anyone?
Wow, that's hard.
Yes, I have one. For Archie would be "Move, bitch, get out the way." Definitely. That's what was running through his mind when he's racing with Catherine and throughout the whole series.
To answer my own question, I think mine would be there were three in the bed and the little roll over. Yeah.
I think mine would be anything by Kate Bush.
Suitably wacky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cloud busting. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to give a non-specific, like anything by Rage Against the Machine, I think. Maybe Sabotage.
There's an Instagram question. It doesn't say from who, but it just says, why is Mariel such a queen?
Yeah, I don't know, man. And why is she such
Because she's played by Phoebe Fox.
I love the fact that which spoiler, but I'm presuming people have watched it before they watch this, but there was this carrot of Mariel returning to being a lady as we went through the series all the time, and they kept putting the scene off where you got to wear a posh dress again.
Poor Phoebe was literally, you had no costume changes. You had wore that dress for 6 months.
The most exciting it got was like headscarf on, headscarf off. You know, that was it, man.
A question from Grabil fan. What was your favorite scene to film? I think mine was the melons. And they really struggled to get enough melons for the scene.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I ate a lot of melons that day. Yeah, every time I opened my mouth to get a bit of melon, the beard just like popped off at the taches, just like, yeah.
I had a scene with Elle where she ends up biting my finger and then screams at me with blood dripping out of her mouth. And the first time Elle did that, it was so scary There was no acting required. It literally kind of blew me backwards, the force of her kind of scream with this blood.
I would, because I had to put the blood in my mouth. So it was in there, and then you would say a line. So it had to be like sitting in my mouth. So sometimes I would take like too big of a swig of the blood. It was like insane. Like I think the first time it was like, I was like, how much blood is in your finger? Because it was like just dripping out like Dracula, like crazy. We were like, okay, this I think is too much.
I still have nightmares about that moment. Somebody flicked snot at somebody at some point.
Oh God, so much.
Yeah.
I think it was too disgusting. I was disgusted. And I couldn't look like Sasha, your face. I couldn't look at you. I couldn't look at you. He had like boogers all over his face.
Seb, what about that scene where you have to come in and basically show your cock to everybody? Which obviously it was covered and we couldn't see it.
Marvelous.
But it was just the whole, it was so awful and ludicrous of a scene that we got the giggles and you just kept having to come in.
I was naked a lot, and there it was. Ass. Yeah, it was that was an experience, that's for sure. I like that line. That's a good line. Marvelous. That's very
marvelous. You struggled. I think you struggled to say that, didn't you, Nick? That was quite
I really struggled a lot, but marvelous. I really, struggled saying that. I'm thinking of random scenes that like I'd kind of forgotten until the other day. Someone asked me a question about the scene where I managed to shit myself, ejaculate, and throw up at the same time, and I somehow managed to kind of forget that I'd done that. But that made me chuckle a lot, going back and remembering. Like,
I remember asking you for a preview of how you were going to do that. We were just offset. I was like, let's just see it right now, and you just gave me a sort of an instant go at it, and it was very good.
Because you want to see all of it just in the eyes, right?
You did. That's right.
Yeah.
I really like the scene that Belinda and I have too, when you're showing me, or I'm asking about the pornographic photos in your room, and we get to slap each other. I like accidentally just like slapped you in the face. I'm like, oh my God, like so sorry. But then we ended up, we're like, let's just do it. Like the stunt guys, they were like telling us how, we were like, please, like we just want to slap each other. Like, please, like let's go.
You know what's really got me actually, that I didn't, because I wasn't there, I guess, so watching it now, and I've only got up to episode 7, so I haven't finished yet. But the stuff with Louis when Vlad dies, that really hurt. And the stuff between Mariel and Phoebe and Louis, I was like, oh, that was really touching and very sad, and I felt terrible watching that.
It was actually genuinely really sad that the day that we filmed the scene where he walks off to his death, because he was actually genuinely so sick. He was really ill and he looked really depleted, and it was fucking devastating, man.
It's also very funny though when you guys open the wardrobe door. Like,
fucking so good.
That got me.
This is a good question and potentially quite controversial to end with. Which actor was most similar to their character? This could get quite offensive, couldn't it?
I'm going to say Seb.
I'm going to say Seb.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Seb, definitely.
Seb.
Definitely.
I think I'm going to say Phoebe. I think he like that.
I wish, man.
That's a great thing, though.
I wish I had all that kind of. I wish I would just punch people. I'd love to do that.
And I would also say Nick, obviously.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of Nick. Yeah.
I was afraid to say that.
Yeah. Which proves that he's like his character.
We were doing the scene with the bogey flicking, and he said, "You've become too much like your character," because I suggested, I think, picking another character's bogeys and then flicking those in case I had run out or something stupid like that. And he was like, "You've been playing this character too long. You need to stop." Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun. I've been crying with laughter listening to all these stories come back. If anyone wants to watch The Great, it is now on Hulu.
Hey.
Bye.
Bye.
Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Love you.